Welcome friends, it is I, your LostScarf, and it's time for the Overwatch Hero Guide to Symmetra. She is the only support that doesn't have a heal, but she can give shields and she can do a lot of work for her team given the right situations. So that's what we're going to go over. We're going to talk about who she is, how she plays, her abilities, just things you should think about on when you're doing attack with her and defense with her. She's usually a defense hero, but you can do some attack stuff with her with the right kind of team. And of course, tips and tricks with her, and then conclusion to wrap everything up. As always, this is more for beginners, but advanced expert players, maybe there's something here you haven't seen or done before. Most likely you have, though. But if there's anything here you feel that should have been mentioned, say so in the comments so that viewers have more they can learn from. It's just good for everyone to learn some more, as always. So, let's get going. So who is Symmetra? Well, her name is Satya Vaswana. She is 28 years old. She's a hard light bending architect that works for the Vishkar Corporation. They saw that she was really good at it. She was so good at being an architect, they made her one of their secret agents. So she goes around and does some of their more spy level work. So she does some pretty crazy stuff for this group. They're a pretty draconian group. If you watch the Lucio guide, this group kind of was not very cool to Lucio's people, so he led kind of a revolution against them. And that's just what they are. They're a group that believes in just order and in sustainable housing, but everyone has to play by their rules. And Symmetra's one of their people, and she's kind of nuts because of that. Now, when it comes to playing Symmetra, she's a different kind of support. She gives her allies shields, she can protect location with turrets, and she can give her allies a new location to start from in battle. This is a pretty interesting idea that she can do things. Being able to spawn closer to the enemy is very helpful, allows you to just do more work for your team, and that's great. She can also do some damage as well, and if she can build up her laser beam, she can do a lot of damage. She's a deceptively dangerous hero that some people just don't understand, and that's what we're doing in the guide after all. Symmetra's abilities. First up, gotta talk about the gun. So this is a photon projector. It's a beam attack that kind of auto-locks onto the closest target to her. As long as they're kind of in her range, she's gonna constantly be hitting them. Now, it builds up as it does damage. Every 1 second, it builds up to the next level. It first does 30 damage per second, then 60 damage per second, then 120 damage per second. That's where it stops. And it falls off on damage after 3 seconds of no combat. So just constantly hit people with it, and you can do a lot of damage. It is deceptively dangerous what that beam can do. You can also, by the way, build it off of shields and maze wall. Now her alternate fire is energy ball. Now you can charge it up for a bigger burst, but it can start out at 25 damage, little ball, and it can be a bigger ball, 125 damage. And what's great about this is it goes through shields, so it can penetrate enemies and shields. You can hit all 6 of the enemy team with one ball. It's pretty cool like that. It's just a very slow moving ball, so it's great for distracting the enemy or close range kill if you just cannot get them with the beam for some reason. Like maybe Tracer's wounded a little bit, hit her with that ball somehow, and then you can maybe kill her. Next up, Sentry Turret. Now these are structures she can put on most surfaces. She can build 6 of them at a time. She starts out with 3 on ammunition, and she slowly gets more as she goes forward in time. Now, they do 25 DPS line of sight firing with beams, and they have only 1 HP each, so you gotta be careful around people like Winston and Mei, because they can kill it in 1 second. Photon Shield is the next ability, and that is her ability to give allies 25 SP until they die. So she can give everyone a shield for 25 HP until they die, and what's great about this is they can hide and then just regenerate that HP back, so it's just a nice little buffer that can save some people. And lastly is her ultimate teleporter. This is a 200 HP structure that you can put down that allies can go from the spawn point to this teleporter, and it can cause a lot of good situations for your team. You only get a limit of 6 though, but the ultimate does build up very quickly. But this is a very useful thing. If you can hide it near the objective, or just somewhere the enemy doesn't see that can flank them, you can cause a lot of trouble for the enemy team, especially if, say, the entire team gets wiped but the teleporter's around. You can instantly get the team back into the fight. It is a very nice ability, and that's what makes Symmetra so scary in the right hands. Symmetra in combat. Now, Symmetra in combat is a little complicated. She has the potential to be very deadly, but she is also very fragile, so you gotta be smart about her. But the first thing you should think about is turret placement. Where do I want to put these things? Well, usually you're going to put them in choke points so the enemy gets killed when they go through them. You're going to put them at the flank so the enemy has a harder time getting around you. Even if they kill your turrets, you know the enemy's there, so your team can now know that they're being flanked for the moment. And also, you can consider putting it where your teleporter is going to be. That way you just have a good defense for when it gets set up. Now, usually you're going to be launching your balls at the enemy, just constantly throwing balls at the enemy to build up your ultimate, and once you have it, you're going to put down that ultimate wherever you feel is convenient. Usually that'll be somewhere close to your objective if you're defending so that your team can get there sooner, or somewhere close to the enemy if you're attacking just so they can have a better spawn point to get to the objective. That's really what it is. Proximity to the objective is usually what you want to do, or proximity to where you feel your team will benefit the most. And you want to keep it hidden from the enemy and hope no one finds it. And if they do, well, that sucks, but maybe if you have turrets, it'll protect it long enough for enough teammates to go through them. Now, once you have ultimate out, you can be more aggressive, because you're not building an ultimate anymore. You could keep throwing balls around, or you can run in there with your beam. She can do damage with her beam. You can kill anyone in the game except Reinhardt with the beam, because Reinhardt will kill you with his hammers faster than you can kill him with your beam. That's just how it is. Reinhardt has so much HP, he only has to hit you 3 times with his hammer. He's going to hit you 3 times with the hammer before you can just dodge around and beam him to death. Everyone else in the game, totally killable with the beam. It's just a question of what you're fighting to deal with. Like, Tracy's going to jump around so much you're not going to have an easy time putting the beam on her, but it is doable if she somehow exhausts all of her dashes. Another person would be like D.Va. You can get in D.Va's face and just scramble around and kill her with the beam. It's a thing you can do. It does get riskier with shotgun people like Roadhog and Reaper, but you can kill them as well. A really good scrambly Symmetra can kill anybody. That's really what I'm saying. But it's only worth doing after you got your ultimate up, because at this point, you really already done your main function. Now you're just there to cause a lot of trouble, and she can do that. Mode duties of Symmetra. Now, when it comes to capture, hybrid, and payload on attack, Symmetra is a very rare sight because she's just got really good defensive abilities. But if you have the right mindset and the right team, you can do work with her. First thing to keep in mind is your turrets. You should be placing them at spots where the enemy could try to flank you. That way they have a harder time doing that. And as you get closer, you can decide where you want to put your turrets after that. But really what you're doing is you're protecting your team as they're pushing forward. Now, once you build ultimate using your balls or maybe your beam, you're going to sneak around the enemy and try to find a flanking position for your team to spawn in. Set up teleporter, set up turrets, give an easier time for your team to get to the point, and they can just take it, and that'll be great. Now, when it comes to payload, though, what you're really doing is you're setting up closer spawn points to where the payload is or where it's going to be. That's really what you're doing. You're pushing up forward positions for your team. That is really what your goal is as Symmetra on attack. Just giving your team a closer position to respawn. And that can actually be pretty huge just because the long walk back to the hybrid point, or the long walk back to the cart, or long walk to the final point. When you have a teleporter, it just allows your team to get to things sooner, and that can be huge, especially if the team gets wiped. They all respawn instantly at this new spot instead of having to run all the way back, surprise the enemy, maybe catch them with their pants down, and then you just win the game. That is something attack can do. Now, when it comes to defense, obviously this is where Symmetra shines. She can put her turrets at choke points, she can put them to defend flanks, she can put them where she's going to build the teleporter. She's just going to set up a nicer spot for her teammates to spawn at, and that'll be really good there. Throwing balls to build up ultimate. Once the ultimate and the teleporter is up, she's just going to beam everyone to death. You can be very aggressive with her once your ultimate's out, because you're not building it anymore. You may as well go kill some people. Now, when it comes to payload, you can set the teleporters just closer to the payload to defend from the enemy. You can also set up turrets on the payload, defend your teleporter, do whatever you want to do. You can set up just death traps coming forward from the enemy payload, just things you can do with her. That can be really great. And of course, once you've built up your ultimate, put that down and just run out and kill people. She's not really good at contesting the payload, of course, but she can kill enemies trying to come off the payload to flank your team. Now, on control, you want to quickly get to the point and set up turrets everywhere. Constantly fight to defend the point, keep those turrets up, but never be predictable about where you're putting those turrets, so the enemy always has to be worried about where they are. The hard part about this is your team needs to be good enough to take the point so you can set up. If you don't have the point, you have a pain in the ass. But teleporters are helpful here. Just having a closer spot for your team to spawn would be really helpful, especially if you can flank the enemy while doing it. But it is not an easy thing for you to do with Symmetra when you don't have the point. Once your team takes the point, you can set that spot up really nice with all your turrets, and it can be just a pain in the ass for the enemy to take. That is where you shine. But on the offensive side, it ain't as easy, but you can still do some work. Tips and tricks with Symmetra. First thing you gotta talk about is gotta be her health. She has half HP, half SP. So when you have only 100 HP left, hide so you can go back to 200. That'll just be a useful thing to do. Another is pay attention to when allies die so you can give them their shield again. That 25 SP is pretty useful at certain situations. It can save some lives. Another is when you beam attack enemies, scramble like hell. Don't just stand there. Just be really hard to hit. If you're really hard to hit, you might not take too much damage. You kill them, then you can move on to the next target. Another is, just mentioned this before, you can build your beam off shields and melee wall, and then attack enemies, so you're hitting them with the 120 DPS from the start of your attack on them. Another is, if you're fighting multiple targets, you can release fire from one person and switch to another target. You don't have to just keep hitting someone, especially if you see someone with like only a little bit of HP left or something like that. You can switch targets, kill them, and then go back to your original target. Something to remember, energy ball goes through shields. This can be really annoying for Reinhardt and Winston. It's just a nice thing to do. And another is, turrets can be placed behind bushes and on the payload. So you can put them behind bushes, make it hard for people to notice them. That's something you can do. It can be very annoying for the enemy, and that it can just do some work. Same thing goes for payload. Someone's low on HP, they come over to the payload and then they die. That's something you can do. Doesn't matter if it's your payload or theirs, you can still put it on there. Another one is, Put the turrets a little high. If you put them a little above ground, the enemy has to take the time to look up to shoot them. And some people just can't shoot up. It's kind of weird like that. So you can actually do some work with that. And lastly, teleporters can win games. Keep that in mind. Don't just waste it. You can do a lot of work with your teleporter. Think about where you're going to put it, and you can win the game because of it. In conclusion, Symmetra is a very useful support to have on your team. She can help you achieve victory very well. Shouldn't have her be the only support you want to heal her still, but with Symmetra you can win games just because of that teleporter alone. She can create interesting situations for your team, interesting flanks, just things that you can do that can just scare the enemy. Because Symmetra is hard to master, but once you master her, oh my god, can she do a lot of work for your team. She just has so much potential to do well, and with the right coordination and the right planning, things can just be magical with Symmetra. And something you want to keep in mind, she has the highest win rate in the game. She's had it for weeks. She has had the highest win rate for a very long time. Think about that. You should master Symmetra. As always, you should share this guide with your friends and anyone else, just making sure more people just learn these heroes. The more heroes you know how to play, just the more fun you'll have, because you'll just have more things you can rely on. You don't have to just rely on 1 or 2 heroes. You can have other heroes you can think you can use that can be effective for your team. Especially if you end up just needing a support, like a second support, there's a healer, but you feel like maybe Symmetra can do a little bit more work for your team. That's something you can do now because you understand Symmetra better. So that's really what's important about sharing these, so more people have things they can rely on. The next guide is going to be Pharah. She can do a lot of work from the sky, but she can also get worked quite a bit. She has a lot of counters, but she has a lot of people she can counter as well. She's just an interesting middle-of-the-road hero in this game. So there you go. That right there is the guide I had fun making. I hope you had fun watching it and learning from it. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.